Mike, you want to start us up?
Recording started. Yep, go ahead, Mr.
All right, we're
Gloria.
recording. If there's any issues with my microphone, just shout and let me know. Okay, so as authorized by Virginia Code Section 15.2-1413 in Albemarle County's Continuity of Government Ordinance, this meeting is being held electronically over the Zoom platform. Public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone. Everyone on the phone and attending via Zoom from the public is in listen-only mode. If there are members of the public attending by Zoom who wish to speak during public comment, please use the raise hand feature to notify the meeting facilitator. For those joining by telephone, please use *9 to indicate you would like to comment. You state your full name and the magisterial district in which you reside before getting into the substance of your comment. If you don't know your district, provide a general location for your home or business. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to comment. This meeting is being recorded. A copy will be posted on the county's website. And with that explanation, I will ask the board members to identify themselves and their general location. So we'll start with Bucky Walsh.
I'm Bucky Walsh. I'm at my home in Albemarle County.
Waldo Jaquith.
I'm here at my home in Stony Point.
Understand Mr. Henry, he's absent today.
That's understanding.
Bill Fritz.
Bill Fritz, I'm here at my home in Charlottesville.
Supervisor Price, I understand, is absent today also.
Agreed.
And then we have Supervisor Andrews.
And I am in Sorrento, Maine at present.
All righty, Mr. Chair, that constitutes a quorum, so we can move forward.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deloria. With the quorum in place, our next agenda item is to approve the agenda. I trust everyone has received a copy of it. Are there any changes suggested to the agenda? Seeing none, I'll move to approve this agenda as it stands. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll take this agenda as approved. Now we've got an opportunity for brief announcements by authority members. I don't have any. Jim, do you have anything?
No, I don't have anything except that I really look forward to this meeting. I think it's been well planned. So,
Bill, anything from your side?
I have nothing.
Waldo?
Nope.
All right, moving right along. That brings us to the public comment portion. I notice we've got a number of participants on the call that are not on the board. If anyone would like to speak to the authority, please signal by raising your hand or listen, what was it, *9? *9, yeah.
And then Heather Rowland has allowing Heather to talk. So Heather, you're on. Hopefully we can hear you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Thanks.
So
for
my
joining.
name is Heather Rowland and I'm in the Samuel Miller district. And my comments relate to Lumen / Centurylink. Our house is in the Box Holly Taylor's Gap segment of VARTI 2021. And we've been very excited at the prospect of having 21st century internet service by September, which will be a huge improvement on our 6 megabyte download speed we currently enjoy on a good day. And I can tell you the trucks arrived this week, so things look good. My concerns center on Centurylink's idea of customer service, and their strategy seems to be to outsource most of their customer service to their customers. We have both internet and phone service through Centurylink, and it used to be that when you had a problem, you would call and speak to a real person with real knowledge. This has become extremely difficult and frequently impossible. When our internet service went down on Friday, July the 1st, I was shocked to find that my first opportunity to speak to somebody would be July the 5th because of the weekend and the bank holiday. Fortunately, that was quickly sorted, but we lost phone service on July the 8th. When I called on the 9th, I was offered July the 18th for a technician to come and make the repair, and then he didn't come. After hours on the phone and on chat, I was given my next appointment of July the 26th. In fact, I was sent to the back of the line, although it was not my fault that the repair didn't happen on the 18th. I think the SCC it was that came to my rescue, and our phone service was restored late last week after 12 days of absence. Centurylink a semi-utility providing essential services. They appear not to be being held accountable as a utility. And certainly my story with Centurylink is not unique. So my question is, are we going to have a great physical broadband network, but appalling customer service to support it? The counties put residents' funding and state taxes into the various party projects. Who is going to hold Centurylink's feet to the fire to ensure that they treat their customers properly, because they're certainly not doing so right now? Thank you.
That's an excellent question, Ms. Rowland. I've had a similar experience in the last 30 days myself with 2 different outages, and the long phone waits and scheduling advances and waiting over a weekend to talk to a human, and no, I can't solve the problem with your online system because I'm not online, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's extraordinarily frustrating. And I share those concerns. We keep asking Centurylink for their solutions in this area, and so far none have been forthcoming. When we identify a particular squeaky wheel, sometimes we can get some grease applied to that, but the systemic repair that is required so far has not been forthcoming. On the other hand, the company is going through a transformation and should have new ownership in the near term, and I still hold optimism that that may bring change to the organization, but I can't say for sure that it will. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
I appreciate Ms. Rowland coming and addressing the Broadband Authority with the ongoing concerns. Jason and I both are in contact with the State Corporation Commission, probably on a weekly basis. You know, there's been a lot of work in Richmond to try to address these ongoing needs. There is a transition agreement stipulation that is ongoing with the SCC, and we hope to have some influence on that. Now, that is post-transition. There's a lot of activity that has to happen and some guidelines that the new company will need to follow. So hopefully situations like this are not repeated as the transition to Brightspeed occurs. I think that's all I have to add right now, Chair. Thank you.
Bucky, you're muted, although I'd like to say something too.
Go ahead, Waldo.
Yeah, I just like to make the point that I find it tremendously frustrating, generally speaking, that broadband providers in this country are functionally unregulated. Certainly true in Virginia. I don't have deep expertise in other states, but that localities like us, we just have the ability to either give them a contract or not. Once that contract is awarded, we can speak in a very stern voice. But our only actual option beyond that is to cancel the contract so that people like me who are on a very slow DSL connection, I'm in Stony Point. Theoretically, I will get fiber service as a part of this expansion happening right now under Body 2021. But the option would just be to, assuming that there would be legal cause to do such a thing, to cancel the contract, and then I'm just have the DSL that I have now, and I'm not sure if that's better or worse. But I would love to see the Virginia State Corporation Commission, and I think more important than that, the Federal Communications Commission, step up and actually engage in some regulatory behavior here in places where in Albemarle County, we don't have the legal authority to do anything of the sort. So we're just stuck feeling frustrated.
I just want to add that I really appreciate how much work has been done by Mike and Jason in keeping the communications open and expediting things for people to the extent possible. As you've said, this is something we need the SEC or the FCC to step up, but they've done a tremendous job at just getting communications to try to help. And I think we're going to hear more today about these efforts. Thank you.
I think we will. Is there anyone else who has their hand up? Mike, I can't hear you if you're talking.
No, sir, Chair. I'm not seeing any more hands up. So if
Okay.
anyone wants to speak, please raise your hand and let us know of your interest. Give it a few.
I think we'll move on then. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the June meeting minutes. Bill, did you receive any substantive feedback to the minutes that you distributed?
Richie got the Mr. Richie instead of Mr. Deloria treatment, but everybody gets that at least once. So that was the only comment.
Would you like to move to approve the minutes? I'm asking you, Bill. They're
Oh,
your
sure.
minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. And that brings us to the old business. We've got a whole raft of slides here. You guys want to take us into the VADI 2020 closeout process?
Yes, Chair, I'll take this over. 2020 occurred and closed almost a year ago now. And as part of the process, DHCD requires that we submit speed test data for 10% of the passings that were served by the project. That data was submitted to DHCD week before last. And then the adjusted passings, which are the locations that the fiber deployment passed by, was submitted as well, both of which have been conditionally accepted. So the report submitted to DHCD, DHCD accepted it, and we were waiting on a final letter that indicates that the report is accepted and we can move on. One of the issues with that was the timing indicated a need for Centurylink Lumen to provide the data. Otherwise, they wouldn't be reimbursed for any work on VADI 2021. So that's one of the ways that I think someone mentioned it earlier, holding feet to the fire. That's one example of how that can happen. So we're working toward making sure that work on VADI 21 doesn't fall into that same zone where reports are delayed or otherwise put into some sort of holding pattern. DHCD expects us to submit reports on time, and that's what we're working on, making sure that we do for future reporting. It's a monthly reporting cycle for VADI 2021. And I can take any questions, but I'm glad to have this come off the agenda. It wasn't on the agenda last month, but we had some issues that were brought up by DHCD, so we quickly closed those out through this process. And we thought it was important that the Broadband Authority know of the DHCD asking or actually requiring us to be in a situation where no reimbursements were to be made to Centurylink Lumen until this closeout data could be processed.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll just add one thing, and that's that a year ago, when we were in the process of actually working through VADI 2020, we didn't have a grants office or dedicated grant staff dedicated to working side by side with us to administer these things. Today we do. We hope to bring on Kimberly Gardner and potentially Vicky Malamfi to one of the ABBA meetings in the future, just so that they can introduce themselves. They are dedicated staffers for the county on grant, and they're going to help us both with applying for future funding opportunities, especially as complexity and size of some of these grants can get quite large, but also administering them. And that's going to be really important as we complete VADI 21, but also as we move into VADI 22's project, which obviously is the largest project that we've taken on of this type. And so our hope is that in cooperation and collaboration with them, they'll be able to see the red flags coming that we need to be aware of, so to avoid any issues like we've seen with VADI 2020.
Yeah, Waldo.
Mike, I've got a question that I believe you may have addressed, and I just missed while I was taking my own notes. So the reports that are required, what is the status of those in the completed, submitted, accepted pipeline?
Right now, we are back in what is called in compliance. What happened with the body 2020 closeout report, which is one of the final reports. We actually have yet another report to do for 2020, and that is the final audit, financial audit. Don't get confused with 21. 2020 was the Green Creek Road, et cetera, all of the Haydensville, Howardsville, parts of Scottsville, so mostly Southern Albemarle. So there is yet another report that'll come up that we have to do. It actually turns out to be a pretty significant financial audit. We bring in our financial folks, and the chair of the Broadband Authority works through that process as well. So it's a structured activity that takes us through the final closeout for 2020. With 2021, our current project, we're doing monthly reports. So we have monthly reports that have at least 10 sections that we have to fill out sort of in a progressive manner. As each new project area comes on, we have to track the amount of spend that's happening, as well as the number of passings that occurred during that particular process. And some additional information, just some text-based information about milestones reached, problems and issues, which we will talk about later in this meeting. But so 2021, we're back on target. We missed a couple of dates on 21, but we're submitting them on time. So we are back in compliance, which is a really good thing.
So there's nothing else that we need from Centurylink to close out VADI 2020. Do I have that right?
There's one more final report that's probably a year out now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Can we move on?
Sure. Jason, you want to take this one?
Yep, moving into our VADI 2021 update. Mike's going to be introducing and submitting or adding some representatives from Lumen to our discussion in just a moment, but we wanted to give you guys an update in terms of upcoming project areas. Milton Hills, the next project area that was to launch, they were dealing with some power served to their equipment. That should be resolved soon, but they're now predicting a launch date for that of August 31st. The Box Holly project areas, of which Miss Roland is a member, they were able to divide them up into separate tranches. And what that does is it allows them to launch individual portions rather than waiting for the entire project area to be completed. And so they've given us dates for those launches, and there's definitely been a lot of activity in these areas. We've heard from numerous representatives in the Rosemont, or numerous residents in the Rosemont area, especially, that people are digging in their neighborhoods, and they're very excited about that. We expect a similar division of tranches for the Stony Point and then the Keswick, Campbell, Cobham areas. And our webinars, next one is a week from this Friday. They have been very, very well attended, great questions coming in from those. And we expect that they're actually going to grow in attendance again as we approach these larger project areas. You know, one of the things that we did early on is we told people, you know, this is a great introduction. If you don't want to come back every month and listen to a lot of the same thing, then don't. And then just wait until your project area is coming up and come back to hear what's going on. So we expect those attendance numbers to grow pretty well. We did have a couple of issues with the ordering process and then the installation process. And we wanted to review some of the information that we present during our webinars, discuss the issue, and then Lumen's response. So to start, this is actually a slide that we show on every webinar, and it's meant to demonstrate the process. And the red annotations are mine to show the 3 phases of work that Centurylink's going to do before your service is installed. The first is a visit by a technician known as a buried site check. This is actually a technician that comes out and measures the distance between the node and wherever it's going to enter your home, and also does the work of looking to see what the proper route is going to be for your fiber drop. The second visit is obviously the fiber drop, and this is usually a subcontractor that will come out, will trench through your yard, put the fiber into the ground, and then a third visit happens when a technician actually comes to install the equipment inside the home. What we experienced was a number of reports of people missing their installation window completely, or having people show up, do the work inside the house, but without a fiber drop actually having occurred. And then from there, numerous efforts to reschedule a fiber drop, reschedule that process, restart that process. And in our data, we had about 20 residents, 9 from earlier project areas. When I mentioned earlier, the last project area to launch was the largest so far. That was Advanced Mills, which has over, I believe, 125 passings. And so a number of these complaints were coming from the residents in those project areas, but 9 of them that we'd received were from project areas as far back as Tillman, which I believe was the second or the third one to launch. This error that I'm about to describe was actually first described in the Gilbert Station area. And what they're describing is, if you go back to this, in order for that first step to happen, in the ordering system, there has to be an indicator that tells Lumen staff and technicians to schedule a buried site check. That indication was automatically setting itself to no. So that step was not happening. Without that step happening, no fiber drop can happen. And so technicians for that last step were showing up believing that this other work had been done and then discovering that it hadn't. The response, the resolution, is to manually set the buried site check indicator in their ordering system to yes, moving forward. So for every new project area that launches, they will be manually setting the indicator to yes. So that way, every resident will receive that buried site check, and then will also receive a fiber drop prior to the scheduled installation date. Our office requested of Lumen that each of these impacted residents, so all 20 of the residents that we were able to track, be contacted to explain this issue and how it was going to be resolved. And then we also asked Lumen to provide us assurances. We've had some setbacks related to labor and material shortages. We've presented those to you guys. We wanted to have assurances that, given the size of the project remaining, the bulk of the passings is actually going to happen in these last 4 or 5 months. We wanted assurances that Lumen had sufficient staff and materials for the future project areas. And we also wanted some idea of how much lead time they would be able to give us when there would be a delay. Their response, one more bit of data that we wanted to share. So they did give us an update today on the take rate. The important takeaway, and this is different from the last time that we've shared this, is this pending versus active. So the number of people in each project area that have ordered service, that is what is used to calculate the take rate, which, as you see, you take ordered service, passings, and you have an estimated take rate. These two indicate people that have ordered service and are now active versus are still awaiting. Our ability to track based on complaints has always been insufficient. And so we weren't terribly surprised to see that though we were tracking 20, they have 47 pending. A significant number of those are people who haven't actually missed an install. They've placed their order recently and are most likely part of the Advanced Mills area, which obviously, as you see, has 26 pending installations. But it did give us some context for understanding the scope of this issue when you look at Tillman Meriwether, where there are still 12 residents that are pending activation, as well as 4 in Gilbert Station, 3 in Snow Hill, and then surprisingly 2 still in Jones Mill. Lumen's response, aside from trying to resolve the problem by manually changing this indicator, They informed us that the fiber success team called each customer on Tuesday, July 19th, and will contact them again with complete installation details as necessary. I will commend them. Even today, when, because of the weather yesterday, several fiber drops were not able to be completed. We received calls reporting this to us. We escalated those concerns with Lumen, and Lumen was able to call those residents, give them an update on what the situation was, and be very responsive to those concerns. Additionally, with regards to staffing and material, they state, we have been able to work through the material challenges with minimal delays so far, but there is still a worldwide material shortage that we do not have any control. We do not have all materials to complete every job on hand, but our contract partner continues to order the maximum quantities allowable to replenish stock as it is used. We have also borrowed from other projects and from other areas to keep these projects moving. Our contract partner are adding additional crews as they come available and has committed to continue that effort. We are doing everything we can to work through the material shortage, the severe weather, and the rock excavation to meet the estimated dates provided. So with that, and to answer any questions and further our discussion, we have Heather Lee, Dolores Carroll, and Steve Brewer from Lumen. Mike, did you want to kick us off?
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's been a difficult challenge trying to determine the difference between what the contracted employees with Centurylink and Lumen know versus what the order system indication is, and then combined with the need for Centurylink Lumen to touch base with their copper infrastructure team. So there's really 3 or 4 different working groups that are making this a challenge. And I was going to ask Steve Brewer of Centurylink Lumen if there's changes in how contractors are managed or how the ordering process is, other than making sure that that buried site check indicator is turned to yes. Are there other things where communication between all of these groups are more efficient and people are talking to one another? We'd like to say we have 100% no-shows. The worst part of this is when people stay home from work and expecting someone to show up and then no one shows, no one's contacted. I'd really like to hear from Centurylink Lumen on how that communication process is going to work going forward. So over to you, Steve.
Certainly, and thank you, Mike. And Jason did an outstanding job of describing everything that we're working with, and so thank you there, Jason. Certainly, we do meet weekly with our internal team to communicate issues and to problem solve as necessary. So, please know that your concerns are being taken very seriously, and we're taking action internally to resolve any of those issues. Certainly, the buried service check or buried service indicator in our ordering system was a large issue that is resolved, and we have committed to making sure that it remains so. Why the buried service check indicator was turned off, I don't know, but certainly that issue has been resolved, and it did cause us some delays and caused a number of customers to miss their actual installation date. I would like to, I don't know if Ms. Rowland is still with us, but certainly would like to apologize to her for the experience that she had. Rest assured that the fiber optic network will certainly provide her with a much better network experience. Certainly, fiber tends to have far less troubles associated. A fiber network certainly has far less troubles associated with it than our copper network. So, in that regard, certainly she should have a much better customer experience going forward. And I will say this, I do have the opportunity to meet with the Brightspeed leadership team at least weekly, if not more often than that. They are absolutely committed to delivering the level of customer service that your citizens deserve. And we are in constant communication with Jason and Mike. We've certainly set up an escalation process that I feel like is working very well in making sure we get those matters resolved and communicate with our internal teams. But and we will continue to do so throughout this process. We're also in the process of wrapping up a cable rehab project that you may be familiar with. I believe there were 74 cables in the Albemarle County area to receive rehab work. That work is projected to be completed by the end of this month, and we currently stand at about 84% completion with that project. So those are customers that are currently on the copper network and should be experiencing less troubles associated with the rehab work being completed as we go. So, that's, I feel like I've addressed the questions that have been asked so far, but I'm certainly happy to take any more.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, maybe make it even clearer. I'll provide an example that Centurylink Lumen needs to address. And this is more forward thinking, Stephen. It's fortunate, it's beneficial to have people connected. So it's great. We hear from new connections that they're receiving close to or exactly what speeds they're intended. However, the installs have been less than professional. And by that, I mean, not only have there been significant delays and people have been left waiting for someone to show up and never receive a call. So it's very, I'm going to use a different word than frustrating. It's very angering that so many people have been in a situation where they're just waiting and they have no idea when anybody is going to show up. Now that's something I hope you're going to be able to address, and I'll make it more clear and just give you a direct question. If Centurylink Lumen thinks it's a great idea to leave cable out on the ground, what is your plan to make sure the contractors who are responsible for burying those lines actually come back and do the work? Otherwise, things are going to get worse instead of better, meaning someone's going to mistakenly run over a line that's buried in grass or cut grass or something like that. It's just the way it works out here in the rural areas. We don't have the luxury of being able to see infrastructure once the grass grows or certain situations happen. So how about answering that question? What's going to go on with all of the exposed cable that's left from the 21 project?
Sure. So first of all, the buried service check indicator played a large role in the missed appointments that you're mentioning. And we certainly believe that we've got that issue resolved, and we'll continue to monitor that as we go forward to make sure it does not play a role in future areas of the project. Insofar as the cable on the ground, there's a process in place to ensure that work is completed. Yes, sometimes weather plays a role in when you can put cabling underground. However, we have an internal process that should take care of that issue. We also meet, as I mentioned earlier, internally and discuss issues just as this. So, certainly I will make sure that our operations team is well aware of your concerns as it relates to cables on the ground and making sure that they're put underground in a timely manner. But again, there is a process in the normal flow of business to take care of that issue.
Okay. All right. One last question. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about the process of the locates. There's been a lot of confusion on, and this may also be because of the misconfiguration of how things happen, but we want to be sure that everyone knows the responsibility of Centurylink is to do exact locate so that there's no further issues with cut copper. We've had a couple of instances where in the processes of installing new fiber, old copper infrastructure is destroyed or mangled or something like that. It seems like that has been addressed. Was that something that Centurylink management did, or was that a commitment from your locate team to make sure that we're not stepping on existing copper while installing new fiber? And then I'll let it go. I know I've gone too long, but
No
Okay.
problem. I have to take a question. Certainly, we've had multiple meetings with our locates team to make sure that the work is, one, done in a timely manner, and done, two, in an appropriate way, and like you said, an exact way. So, we've certainly seen improved results as a consequence of those conversations and working with our locates team. But I've been involved in many of those calls myself. Certainly, that's the operations team. That's their responsibility to manage. But I assure you that those conversations and working with our locates partner are constant. We meet with them on a routine basis to discuss the quality of work and to ensure that the work is being done in a timely manner, which we all know is critical to customers avoiding outages while we're deploying this fiber.
all right, thank you. There's got to be other questions out there. So, thank you, Steve.
Any other questions from the board? Jim, go ahead.
Sure. I just want to, on the previous slide, there was a description of material challenges, material shortages, but then further down it says we're adding additional crews as they become available. And I'm trying to sort of understand the interplay between material challenges, which I haven't really heard to be part of the installation process issues that we've been seeing, and crews, finding the people and having the right contractor mix to do this work in a timely, correct fashion. Comment on that?
Yes, sir. So, certainly we have experienced material shortages as we have deployed fiber really throughout the nation. And, we're doing everything we can to place fiber and the materials needed for the network deployment in the appropriate place at the appropriate time. But material shortages have certainly caused some challenges for us. And quite frankly, labor is a bit of an issue. Certainly, we have experienced situations, and I'm not specifically speaking Albemarle, but in other locations where contractors have just simply picked up and left to go elsewhere, presumably to chase higher dollars, if you will. There are lots of broadband grants and lots of dollars floating around for the deployment of fiber, and that being the case, there are certainly labor shortages created accordingly. Quite frankly, we have had situations where contractors have lost labor to go join another contracting company who may be paying a higher hourly wage. So, all of that right now, as we come out of this pandemic, have just caused a lot of issues in managing these types of deployments.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I had one. It was, I think, one of your earlier slides there, Jason, was about, sorry, I'm looking back on my notes here. Oh, yes, about the delay due to lack of electricity to equipment. So I just want to state back to you what I think that's about. You just tell me if I've got it right. That the equipment has been installed, everything is connected, but they're waiting on the incumbent power provider to hook it up to the electrical grid in order to power that equipment. Is that right?
To a degree, that is correct. Certainly, there will be a bit of construction that has to be completed after the cabinet is powered. But yes, you got to have power to the cabinets that provision the service in order to to complete the construction. And as I understand it, that work should be completed on August 5th and should allow us to turn up the area by the end of the month.
Thank you.
More questions? Mike, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay. So as we've worked through this, I think it's important for the Broadband Authority to know that we're slightly behind schedule, maybe a month. We're working hard to try to make sure that everyone is well informed about what's going to happen. Looking forward to future deployments, especially since we're going to be moving into some of the bigger project areas starting next month, August. So a lot going on. Thanks for the Centurylink Lumen folks who were able to join this evening. We appreciate your partnership, and let's work to continue to improve.
Thanks very much for tuning in, folks. We appreciate it.
Thank you for the opportunity. Please know that we want to get all of these customers installed as quickly as possible, and when the service is committed to being installed for them, so that they can enjoy the benefits of fiber optic networks. And as we move forward, as we transition over to Brightspeed, we will continue to work to improve on these issues that have shown themselves throughout this process, and look forward to continuing to serve your citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay. There's questions for Civic Firefly. I'm glad to bring them on. I'll take the 22 update. So as the Broadband Authority knows, the three-party agreement with TJPDC and Civic Firefly and the Broadband Authority has been completed. We were one of the first of the 13 counties to complete that agreement. There still remains a contract between DHCD and TJPDC, Thomas Jefferson Planning District Commission, and the Department of Housing and Community Development. You know, the Broadband Authority has had 3 of these. There's very complex arrangements that go on to make that contract viable, available, and with 13 counties all contributing to the contract, there's still not a lot of work to be done. It's very close to the finish line. You know, here we are almost to August, and the award announcement was done in December. So I know that's a struggle to understand why it's taking what now 7 to 8 months to be under contract with DHCD. Hopefully things are going to be finished with that soon. The positive of all of that is that Firefly has continued to do make-ready work with their partners, Appalachian Electric, and moving forward, doing work with Rappahannock, and also we've heard from and seen work that Dominion Energy is doing to build their middle mile in Albemarle. So there's a lot of work that's being done to prepare for this major project. And all the while, you know, CVEC is doing a great job, or Firefly is doing a great job working with the electric part of the company to finish the build out to their membership in Albemarle. So multiple meetings about that have been going on. I don't think that any of us are CVEC members, but it's a real benefit for the CVEC membership to be provided fiber through Firefly in Albemarle County. So we're really appreciative of that work that's ongoing. So
Mike, if Gary or Dennis had something they wanted to chime in, we'd be happy to hear
yeah,
from
I'd
them.
be glad. I'll let them talk. Yep, allowing Dennis to talk, and Gary, thanks y'all for joining. Really appreciate y'all taking the time. Dennis, Gary, anything to add?
Well, I had not prepared anything, but I appreciate the opportunity just to tell you that we do continue our work first on the CVEC project. We have completed the fiber placement. roughly 95% of the fiber placement in Whitehall. We may have one little area we were waiting to cross the road and had a permit we were waiting to get from VDOT, but we anticipate that if it doesn't happen this week, to happen within the next week or so, I think. At Red Hill, we've completed the work minus one railroad crossing, I believe, that needs to be scheduled. And at Schuyler, we're about 30% of the way through the work down there, but that's a fairly small area, and we should be completed that within the next 2 to 3 weeks. In terms of getting the fiber up, the splicing has already begun in Whitehall, and then we'll continue. We'll go through Red Hill and Schuyler to get everything spliced and ready to serve folks. We still intend to get all of the CVEC members who choose to take service online this year. That's going to be a real push for us. We've got about 5,000 people across parts of our service area to get connected between now and year end. So it's about 250 a week. But we're pushing really hard to try to get everyone on the CVEC system who want service. On the body side for the project that we're in, we have also been frustrated with waiting this long and working on the contract. It is it's a large project and has its complexities, but I anticipated that if the contract took a while, we would have it done by March, not almost August. We do intend to sign that this week. We just had another meeting with DHCD today. That may leak over into the first few days of next week. We're finishing up the final few touches on a couple of documents that they're waiting for, that we've been going back and forth on now for a while. But we hope to get the contract in place. In the meantime, we have completed our field data gathering in what we're calling our Red Hill area. It's about almost half of the American Electric Power Service area in the southern part of the county. And AEP has done their field engineering on the first 90 miles of power lines. They still have make-ready work to do. We have written checks to them for about $400,000 worth of work on those lines. So we try to make sure as soon as they provide a proposal and a cost estimate that we send the money over so that we can get in line and encourage them to put as many crews on the project as possible to move quickly and get that out of the way. We will have fiber crews coming available really within the next few weeks that we will need to place somewhere to build aerial and underground fiber. And the sooner EEP can get their make-ready work done, the sooner we can get into the area to put our aerial fiber up. As you mentioned, Dominion is working on its middle mile program, doing its field work. They intend to apply next year to include that in their middle mile program, but they will take up some areas in Albemarle as early as this year for construction because it ties in with their grid transformation project that also has some fiber placement in it, and where that overlaps, they feel comfortable starting into our the project that will also provide us access to middle mile. So it's possible by late this year or early next year that they'll start some fiber placement in Albemarle, a little ahead of them actually filing with the State Corporation Commission for rate recovery of that project. And then in the Rappahannock area that is adjacent to the Whitehall CVEC area, kind of in the Northwest County, that field work, all the field engineering is complete, and make-ready crews have started out of the Rappahannock Standardsville substation, which will serve down into that area. So we've begun to make ready work there on the ground. So we're working in several different areas. In addition, we're continuing to push AEP. We've turned over the rest of the poles to AEP to in southern Albemarle to do their make ready engineering and construction on. And we work with Dominion regularly in Albemarle as they work through the sections where they'll be building middle mile fiber. Albemarle has the most middle mile fiber of the Firefly seat and Dominion agreement for middle mile. So we're moving and doing the things we can prior to getting that contract in place. We're looking forward to getting the contract in place because we can actually start being reimbursed for some of this money we're spending in those areas. But we're trying to move forward on all fronts to allow us to get people connected as soon as we can in those new body areas, as well as continuing to finish up the CBC piece. So a long-winded update when I didn't have any notes. I'll be glad to take any questions, or Dennis can help us.
Any questions for CBC Firefly?
Yeah, I've got one. My folks live in Free Union, and they are a stone's throw from your service area. And of course, they're hearing from neighbors about how they're getting fiber. And I said, look, I'm sorry, nothing CVAC can do about it, nothing Firefly can do about it. You're just going to have to wait. And then they got a letter in the mail. And they got a lot of letter in the mail, and it sounds like they're getting Firefly service. And I look like a chump to my parents, so maybe you can let me know. Are y'all building a little bit beyond the edges of your service area where that makes sense, or have they been misinformed?
So we, in one particular area up there, the short answer is yes, we're building a little outside the CBC area in a few places. We had one small area that was kind of isolated, and CBC served part of a subdivision or a community, and there were going to be a handful of homes that were left without the service.
That's where they live.
That's it. It didn't make sense for us to leave that and wait and come back later. So we have added it in, and we're just going to build that. Firefly will build it while we're in the area. So we're doing things like that throughout the service area to try to keep people from, particularly in the small isolated areas, from feeling like, you know, everybody around them has service and they're going to have to wait for years. So yes, I'm glad that they're in that area. I know that we have a town hall tomorrow that includes that area and a couple of other areas spread around a couple of the counties we're in.
Well, great. I'm glad you've been wrong about that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Waldo, this is a case where it's okay to look like a chump.
Yeah, nobody's complaining about it in my family. No.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Very proud of you, Walt.
Jim's friends with my dad. Small county.
Gary, Dennis, thank you all very much for attending and giving us an update.
All right.
Thank you.
Mike, it looks like we got a lot of slides left to go, and we're kind of running into time here. Could we go as quickly as possible through those? Mike, you're muted.
Okay, so 23, thanks for all the support and getting the notices that were submitted to the body. You know, the application due date is August 25th, so we're working to gather data and entice ISPs to work with us. I won't go into the details because of time, but we're getting there. You know, and recognizing that BEAD, the federal program, this is a precursor to BEAD, so we're excited about the additional federal funding that will be coming to the Commonwealth and put to use post body 23. But that's all I had for that one. I think we can quickly go on to the next slide, Jason.
Yep.
So this is another quick one, just making the Broadband Authority aware that we are moving to, so far, unless things change, the September meeting will be a in-person meeting, and there's a lot that goes beyond that we can't talk about here, but we'd like to offer an opportunity for ABA members to visit room 241, which is where we'll be located, and we'll do a mock setup of a meeting so that everyone feels comfortable, and we can go through and make sure that the meeting goes up. Now we'll have to do that in a methodology where it's 2 by 2, otherwise it would be a broadband authority meeting. So if people are interested, we'll be in touch so that we can get set up to do that. Yes, sir. Next one. No changes to the financial report. Since Centurylink Lumen has not invoiced for the 21 project, we have not had any expenses. And next one, moving quickly here. I'll turn it
All
over to
right.
Jason with the same intensity. So keep it quick there, Mr.
Gonna
Okay.
move. So we've got 3 things in the BAAO report. That's the ACP Bridge soft launch, is what we're calling it, the Centurylink Lumen service update, which Mr. Brewer kindly buried the lead right there. And then a brief update on a work group that we've been participating in. The ACP Bridge program, this is the supplement to the Affordable Connectivity Program, adds $20 back to that program to reach the original $50 EBB funding levels for residents. And this is for Albemarle County residents that are beneficiaries of the Affordable Connectivity Program. We currently have our MOU posted for this program and are awaiting return of those MOUs. We've heard back from, every time we are on the phone with the provider, we poke them with a stick about this. We've heard back from several that they're eager. It is sitting in their legal department and they have no, we're all familiar because we've all been here, but they have no way to expedite this beyond reminding their legal department that this is something that is a priority. We also have actually opened our application portal. We're working with Kate to prepare a very widespread announcement to advertise this program. We believe it is okay for us to start receiving applications prior to having the MOU signed. So that way, when the MOUs are signed, we are able to turn over those applications immediately and say, here's a list of people to start receiving this credit. We're preparing communications for when applications start coming in to let people know. And this is going to be useful moving forward anyways. If their provider is not currently under an MOU, we will let them know that that has not happened yet. They can encourage their provider. And as soon as their provider has signed the MOU, we will work to enroll them in the program. We are really hopeful that we get a lot of capture both amongst our providers, but also amongst the 1,700, 1,600 ACP households in Albemarle County. So we're still pushing this, and we hope to have an announcement and some coverage in the press in the near term. The Centurylink Lumen update, this is still building off of the January work session and the follow-up and the outcomes from that. As Steve mentioned, ultimately, originally it was 52 and up reached 74 cables were analyzed, funded for rehabilitation, and 84% of that work has been completed. We've asked in the past, Steve's not on the line anymore, we have asked in the past, what does rehabilitation mean? There are times when rehabilitation means replacement. There are times when rehabilitation, it sounds like, means more of just more edge work. We don't have a breakdown of how much of which type of activity was performed, but in the next 4 days, they expect to complete the last 16% of this project. Our role will continue to be to track outage and outage reporting and resolution. That is something that we're going to do in coordination, as Mike mentioned, with the SCC. They're a black box. We don't get information from them, but we are happy to share our information with them. Any questions on that? Bucky looks like he may have frozen. Press on, Bucky. If you did have questions, we're happy to back up. And then lastly, HB 445. This was a bill presented by Senator Boysko to address new housing developments lacking broadband. The original language of the legislation actually required that any new housing development in Virginia have broadband. That was heavily contested, and what it ended up being is a stakeholder advisory group to discuss these issues and possible resolutions. First 2 meetings have happened. I'm currently serving on the work group, and the September meeting, our third meeting, is actually going to be where we finalize a draft report. So the staff at DHCD is eager to start writing this report, and they have a list of recommendations. I'm happy to discuss them more in depth with each of you. I've asked for a comment from Richie because legislative language is kind of his thing. But if anybody would like to see the recommendations and discuss them, you can email me. I'd love your input. The outline is here, and I highlighted 4 that I think are really important to consider in the future. The first is the dig once policy. We've discussed that before, and to establish a dig once policy in the subdivision ordinance. Bill and I have spoken about this one, as well as speaking with planning with CDD. It's possible that we could do something like this in new development where there's a rezoning. So essentially just issue it as part of any rezoning. It's possible that we could do this for similarly for other sorts of new developments. There's also one for general enabling authority. So it turns out we do not actually have clear statutory language that states that we can do certain broadband activities, that municipalities can't do certain broadband activities. It's one of the reasons why the authorities exist, is to kind of provide some of that authority. And so one of the recommendations that was somewhat contested was to establish some really basic language around the idea of promoting broadband. This is something that Eldon James actually initially supported. He's from Virginia Planning. He initially supported, and then he kind of backed off because he was concerned that if this were to get voted down, that then might put a little bit of scrutiny on counties that are doing broadband activities such as ours. And then lastly, broadband inclusion in Latex scoring and evaluation. This was another one that was a little bit contested because it puts at risk low-income housing in areas where broadband would be particularly hard to require or hard to ensure. But it's one that I think is worth revisiting with certain caveats. The one thing that got left off was to produce a guidebook for municipalities that establishes all of the legal authorities based on Virginia statutes and kind of best practices. This is something that got general consensus and is likely something that we're going to see recommended, but it's also not really a legislative solution. So it's going to be interesting to see what the final result of the work group is. But again, I'm happy to circulate the content of the recommendations and take feedback.
I'll take the annual meeting. We meant to have a couple of bullets on this slide, but as everyone knows, the big thing about the annual meeting is a review of our
Thank you for
procedures.
that.
Whoops, sorry. What
I think
happened?
Bucky's having his own connection problems.
Okay, so just quickly, the annual meeting, we elect our board of directors. We also go through and set our annual schedule. So it will set the meeting schedule for the coming year. And we go through our rules and procedures. So those 3 things happen during the annual meeting. And we'll provide materials ahead of time so that people can make comments on any of the rules and procedures. So be thinking about keeping the same slate that we've had in the past and move forward with the straightforward election. So any questions or concerns about the annual meeting? Coming up in August. Okay, that's it. Well, it looks like connectivity issues have impacted our chair. So
That means Waldo gets to take over.
that's right. Good thinking. Good thinking,
Yeah,
Bill.
I guess so, but I'm kind of
Hey.
jealous. When my connection goes bad, I always have some absurd look on my face, and Bucky looks so thoughtful and attentive. No, we got you back, Bucky.
I always look thought. Did Richie have anything you wanted to add?
I'll just add, I sent around an email with the only known amendment to our rules and procedures. It's just updating or making us current with the General Assembly's changes to FOIA. It will update remote electronic participation, which our rules already allow, but there are some changes. So we're going to make those consistent with the new statute. It also proposes that we allow all virtual electronic meetings under very limited circumstances. My suggestion is that we will adopt those and use and save those for special meetings. They have such limitations on how many you can have, and you can't even have them consecutively, that it makes it practically impossible to adopt a regular all virtual meeting schedule. So that's been circulated. If you have questions or comments, please send them just directly to me or Mike. We don't want a contemporaneous conversation amongst members. And the other thing is, if you have other additions or amendments to the rules, please let me know as soon as you can so we can give other members advance notice. But that's pretty much it.
Sounds good. Is there any other business we need to take up before we finish this meeting? Seeing nobody raising their hand, then I'll move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
Seconded.
All those in favor say aye. Thank you all very much. I'll see you next time.
You.
Bye, folks.
Good, everybody.
Bye-bye.